Welcome back to another edition of the AUDL Take. I'm really excited to bring you this episode for this week. It's something I've been thinking about for many years, and a topic I think that's really important right now, especially with nothing going on in the ultimate world. I thought this would be a great episode to kind of start something and honestly see where it goes. And what am I talking about? And I'm talking about two of my favorite leagues, probably that Ultimate has ever done. Of all the years I've played in Ultimate with the USAU, I think the two greatest things that's ever happened is the AUDL and the PUL. Putting Ultimate on a pro level and treating it a little bit as a product, something that we can market well and sell and inspire other players of all race and genders that they can play this sport, and it could become something that maybe one day this could be something you do professionally. Now, unfortunately for me, someone a fan of both of these leagues, I just feel that there has never really been great communication between the two. What I want this episode to be about is how can we bring these two different leagues who kind of have a fan base that seems to be at odds with one another, and we kind of see that throughout our community. And I think there's a lot of name calling going around and things being thrown around that kind of get in the way of something that actually could be incredible if we were to pull these leagues together, and not necessarily saying they have to operate together, but if we showcase some events, things that could actually bring our community together and actually help each other move forward and grow and make the sport even more accessible to people and showcase even more diverse types of Ultimate players themselves. There's just so much more positivity that we can move towards, but I do have to kind of talk about where we've come from and how we're going to move forward. So I think this discussion, we have to kind of touch on the GE movement. Now, like I said, I'm not a person who's going to give you the most accurate portrayal of what GE is. I think you need to look into that yourself. There are plenty of resources if you look in the Ultimate community, PUL being a great place to start and kind of dive in. And I think that's where we're going to start. There's things that happened before that I'll touch on as well, but let's start there. And we're going to talk about basically the boycott on the AUDL and where that came from. Now, we're talking about from my perspective, so you have to understand, I'm not here to criticize exactly the people that believe in this movement and who want it to succeed, because I am one of those people. But at the same time, I think there has things been done by the GE movement that actually hasn't really helped women. Let me give you a quick story before we move on to then talking about the boycott. When I was first getting into playing Ultimate, like in the AFTC here in Atlanta, there was a switch between 5-2 and 4-3. And I completely liked it because I felt that, yeah, this is a great move. I want women to be able to play more. I saw the positivity in it and the way that sport could be more equal. And I was completely on board. But then I saw the execution of it. And what I started to actually see was that all the best women were still all playing together on their own teams because, they're friends. They want to play their summer league with their friends. I completely understand. But the problem was they had as much playing time as they wanted. And I mean, these are highly skilled women that are playing here in Atlanta. And they were just decimating and destroying our teams. And that happens. I'm not saying that was the issue. The problem was the women that used to come and they used to have only two positions to have to worry about, they weren't playing savage. They were able to have subs. But when we switched to 3 and we were only getting maybe 4 women to show up, 3 women to show up, it became harder and harder. These were new women coming into the sport. They were learning on the go, and they were just every time playing getting destroyed, having to play savage every time they came out to play, and all of a sudden the numbers started to drop. We were lucky to get 2 women. We had 6-7 women on our roster, but I noticed that the numbers dropped. And before, we didn't really have that much of an issue. But all of a sudden, we could barely get 2 women to show up consistently. And I think I started to notice, I go, wow, this 4-3, I understand where it's coming from. But here, how it's affecting our summer league, I'm noticing more women leave rather than stay. And now, is that the only reason? Probably not. They may not have liked the sport. There's so many other factors. But it was my first time noticing, I'm like, I get what this is a positive move, but there was a negative effect. And when this was brought up to some people, it just didn't seem to be addressed. And so I kind of noticed, okay, this isn't probably good for the cause to do this. I think this is great, but there is some negative effects we need to address. And it kind of got, to me, swept under and moved past. Now, I've been continuing to play, and there's still new women who are coming in. And honestly, you're starting to see the high school kids that come into these clubs now, where they've been playing it a lot longer. They're more used to the sport. They're coming in at a higher level already. Things have really progressed since then. But I noticed that there was some things about the movement that I felt it's okay to be critical, but in no way was I trying to harm the movement in any sense. I want to say that was all around 2011, 2012. So let's move now back to the boycott. There was legitimate concerns from the GE movement that I completely understood in the fact that I felt like women were being left behind in pro sports. The AUDL was dominantly men. Like that, it was just them. There really wasn't many women. But at the same time, I feel like the GE movement came up with this boycott in a way to address those concerns. But at the time, if you look at it, the GE movement was a little more fractured in what their demands actually were. There were some people who thought, well, the AUDL should go mixed, or well, the AUDL should have a women's team, or we need to have more women programs and more women involvement. And some people said, well, we want all of those things. Here were these demands. And as we've seen, we'll talk about, the AUDL has actually transformed a lot from that moment. They've actually met, if you look at some of the demands of the GE and what they've done since, they've actually met some of those demands. But I felt like the PUL was a way for them to take ownership of their ideas. And that's what makes it so awesome to talk about. Because when the PUL was created, and I think I have to give a lot of credit to Maddie Frey. I've met her, she hired me to work and film for her. I want to say, someone who is very intelligent, and I can see the leadership just in the few interactions I've had with her. So this league is in good hands with her running it. And I just can't believe how successful it really was. I didn't think it wouldn't be, but really I'm just so impressed with the last couple of years of fundraising. It really shows that a part of this community is hungry for this. And by golly, they have a great product. I think not just because I'm filming it, but no, the championship that was held here in Atlanta was some of the most exciting Ultimate I've ever seen. I compared it to the AUDL when I was up in Madison in 2016. It was just that moment of like, I've never felt Ultimate like this. This is such a unique feeling. It was incredible. And I think what the PUL did was they said, you know what, here's the demands, but how about we put that upon ourselves and we, do what we're preaching. Walk the walk, not just talk the talk. That's literally what they did, and they're doing pretty well. But if you actually look at it, they are sometimes not living up to their own message as well. And I think being critical of that, and the PUL I think has even admitted to themselves that maybe they haven't lived up to the same messaging that they're putting out there, but they are striving to. Now let's fast forward a few years to where pretty much we are now, and let's look at some of the things the AUDL I think has done that I believe have kind of matched what GE was looking for. We've seen the diversity initiative come. We've seen the last two Color of Ultimates, where the AUDL sponsored the one in LA, was a major sponsor of it. We saw the Atlanta Hustle, a franchise of the AUDL, help put on an event here in Atlanta. And in no way are these people screaming for credit for it. I think these people, and I was one of them helping work, I just wanted to put on a good show. And if these people were running an event for what they believe in and they want to have their message heard, that's my job, is to give them the best quality video that they can have to make what is going on in that event look as good as possible and make their messaging as great as possible. I really want to talk about just recently too with the AntiRacism Panel and the response I saw from people who were more involved in the PUL. I think the people who were a part of that panel are people who I've all interacted with in some form or fashion, and I highly respect. And the money they raised, and just what was it, 2 days, maybe a weekend, it was $70,000, $75,000. This was nothing to sneeze at, and yet I really did see people criticize that the AUDL, well, just this one thing. Well, what about, like I said, the Color of Ultimate? What about the initiatives? What about the fact that they've done a lot since where they've come from? They're making strides. They're not the PUL, and that's why I'm glad the PUL exists. But to say that they are trying to erase anything that this league has done or the women have done in their own league and within the AUDL, you have to understand there are a lot of women in the AUDL. I believe there are owners that are, I believe one team, Seattle Cascades, I think there's a female owner. There may be others that I'm missing. There's female trainers, coaches. There were a few female players, and I still think there are a few female players, if they tried out, they would be on a team. I genuinely believe it. And so I think it's not to the level of what we want in the sense of true diversity, equity, but I would say the same thing about the PUL. I feel like all of this takes away, and this is where last part of the episode, the part that I'm super excited about, because I think there's so much more we could do to work together. We have the PUL, who is really focusing on the social aspects of our culture, and I think are nailing it in a lot of ways. And the AUDL is looking at the product of Ultimate itself and how to market it to advertisers and larger audiences. So you have two different really objectives that are going on that are both actually, I think, going to be successful. And I really want us to now focus on, yes, we've had this history. There are a lot of great points of the GE movement has come up, but I think there are things to be critical of as well. I think the AUDL has been poor at responding to these movements, but in no way I think are trying to halt any type of progress, I think they're going to learn a lot of things from the PUL. And this is the moment now with this closure of Ultimate right now. We don't even know if we're going to be able to come back with sports. We're really in the dark right now. We don't know. And that's going to lead us to our next segment, where we're going to talk about how these leagues could actually start to look at building bridges and bringing some of these communities together to empower both leagues and hopefully move on to make an even better product of Ultimate than we've ever seen before. Now, how do we bring the PUL and the AUDL together to make the messaging clear, that how the GE movement, diversity initiatives, the idea of what the PUL messaging wants to be, and how we can get that mixed in with the AUDL, and we all can get on the same page? I think it comes down to holding live sporting events together, and also working on fundraising and other ways to promote each other's seasons. I'm not saying that they have to become the same league, and actually I don't want that. I like the idea of the more different types of leagues with the different type of objectives, those become their clear objectives and they're not bogged down by trying to do too much. So we've seen this in Atlanta before. It's called the Atlanta Block Party. I think we've done it for 2 years now, maybe more. And it usually would be me getting up very early, filming the high school girls championship, state championships in Georgia. It was kind of the early morning game, maybe like noon or 1. Then I would film maybe the Atlanta Hustle or the Soul game next. And then you would, depending on how we did it, it was either the Soul or the Hustle at night. But otherwise, I'm filming 3 games all day. I'm doing it. And I absolutely loved it because I loved the event itself. We were celebrating youth Ultimate. Usually I think it was the high school girls. We may have filmed the boys one time. I can't remember. And then I would film a soul game, and I'd film a Atlanta Hustle game. And I just felt like, yeah, here's all the pro levels, and here's the youth that are going to represent our future. And they're seeing professional women and professional men both having an event at the same time. I thought that was incredible. I thought that was a way to show how we're all in this together. I don't think anyone really wants us to we don't want to leave people behind. So I want to see things like that. I think that's a good movement. Now, I've even thought of a wild tournament prospect where you have the PUL and the AUDL playing their seasons, and then you have like a cup where it's the PUL and AUDL, and it's like a mixed kind of thing where you have the Atlanta teams where it's some people from the Soul and some people from the Hustle, and you play another thing and another team like from Raleigh, let's say, and it's like the Ultimate Cup or something like that. Something like that would bring people together because it's a cool way to show mixed Ultimate. You have your women's Ultimate and AUDL, which, for lack of a better word, it's open, but it's men's. So it's a cool way to then show mixed as a product. All of these kind of events, I think, actually showcase our sport in the best light. You can look at that from the AUDL's perspective. If you look at the season, what are the 2 big events that probably the AUDL works hard on? The All-Star Game and the Championship Weekend. Why? Because the events themselves are such a spectacle. And so having something like the Ultimate Cup or having these Atlanta block parties, events like that. We even saw that on the West Coast with the Cascades and I believe the Flamethrowers. They were putting on mixed game events. These are the events that are going to help the franchises in their cities because it's going to tap into the culture of that city. Early on, if you want to be a successful franchise right now, you need to tap into what's going on in your community. And I think the PUL has a more tap in that right now because I think they speak volumes to what's going on in our culture today. And the AUDL, I think, focuses really well on the platforms and the marketing and the execution of getting that media out into the world. If we could bleed those together and put on incredible events and show off the sport, I'm telling you, we can kind of get past a lot of this stuff. I'm not saying I'm an angel in all of this stuff if we've moved up through here. I've been highly critical of things and I've probably been wrong a lot of the times. But man, if we can now just start looking at this time where we're all stuck at home still and trying to figure out if we're going to be able to come back, this is a great opportunity to look at some kind of committee, something where we can bring these leagues together and really have real conversations on how both can exist, but we can kind of almost advertise to each other and pull each other up. So hopefully I can spark a conversation. I know this is just kind of out there. It's something I've been thinking about for a while, but let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you've made it through this whole video, I'm like super thankful. I know a lot of people start to trail off, I think, about the first 3 or 4 minutes in, but I want to thank you for tuning in to the AUDL Take this weekend. I really hope you enjoyed the episode. Let me know what you think on Reddit, Twitter, Facebook. Make some comments. Let get this conversation going. I'd like to see where it goes. But thanks once again for tuning in. I'll see you all next week.